What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Real Spit from the Gangsta Gone Legit. Today, before we get started, I'm gonna need you to hit that like and smash that subscribe button. Today, we got my man Tavon, aka Smooth. What's up, bro?
What's up, Mr.
Man, it ain't nothing, man. Thanks for being a part of this platform.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get right to it, man. Where you from?
I'm born in Orchard Park. Grew up in Creston, around Grove Hall. I've really been all around the being.
Okay, so you're a Roxbury kid.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel that in Roxbury for sure. 617. So, at what age would you say you got involved in the street life?
Unfortunately, real young. Like, I got into the streets around 10 years old, late 80s, early 90s. Whole family was kind of dibbling and dabbling in the streets, and it just was basically a part of it.
Okay. So 10 years old, wow, that's young. You got me beat by quite a few years. I think mine was about 13, to be exact, about 12, 13, yeah. Okay, so was you a part of the gang culture at all?
Nah, I've never been a part of the gang culture. I lost my father, my two uncles, and my oldest brother by the time I was 12, 13. And so pretty much, man, it was just, we got a big family, a lot of older dudes that was around that kind of dealt with my brother, my oldest brother Troy that passed. A lot of them kind of migrated to me. I was his younger brother, so they took me and basically taught me all the bullshit, and had me hustling packs and, running the streets, young.
Okay. What did you grow up in before? I know you said you lost your father early, but did you grow up with your father? Your mother and father in the same household?
We actually moved from Orchard Park up to Mattapan for a few years, and then right back down to Roxbury. And at that time, that's when I lost my pops around that time, and we was all in the same household,
Okay. So tell me, when was the first time you had a brush with the law? Like, did you do DYS time at all? Did you ever get committed?
Yeah, I had it. Mine was kind of different. I was in the MECO program, so I was in school in Reading, and I was bussed out to Reading, and at that time there was no black families in the town, no minorities, period. It was just a white town. The only blacks in the town was us being bussed out there. So, we started playing sports, started hanging around the town, had host parents and shit like that. And, at that time, we would just run around, do things that normal kids did, hang out at the parks, all of that type of stuff. But when the cops came or was called for disturbances, all of my white friends got sent home and the police used to arrest me. So, since the late 80s, early 90s, I racked up about 5 to 7 charges of disorderlies and just little petty stuff that they would put me behind bars young and kind of, condition me young in a kind of a foul way, and I ended up going to DYS when I was 12 in 91.
So would you say that being locked up in DYS, instead of it helping you to prevent you from going to prison, would you say that it helped you to go?
Yeah, DYS was, they used to call it mini gladiator school, and pretty much even the staff used to tell us, like, if we coming through there, it's a 75, 80% chance that we would end up in the adult prison system, and they kind of advocated that. It wasn't too much rehabilitation even in DYS at the time. At that time, I kind of linked up more with people all over the city, and kind of got more into the streets.
Okay, so that enabled you to actually grow your criminal activity and start learning different things.
Yeah.
You start getting connected with different people.
Different connections.
Okay, so at what age are we talking? Well, take me to how you got incarcerated and ended up doing your time. Like, what happened to get you there? Like, what did you do?
I had an older dude that, kind of threw me headfirst in the streets. He saw that I had a lot of heart. I didn't have much direction. So, he kind of fed that energy, with the negative energy, and put a lot of guns in my hands, put a lot of drugs in my hands, and I kind of learned a lot from him. We ended up getting in a raid in '93. He ended up going to do time. I ended up going to DYS. He caught about 5 years. So while he was in, and I ended up getting out of DYS, that's when I ended up like learning on my own, being out here on my own in the streets. And when I was on Creston Street, it was like at that time there was a bunch of gangs in Boston, obviously, 92, 93, and Creston was like a neutral street. So when I was hustling over there, a lot of the gangs around, the area was, telling me I couldn't hustle over there or whatever. And, we never got ganged up. It was just me and a couple dudes over there. And, it got into the turf wars, that it just was what it was,
So you basically was beefing over getting money in the turf. You wasn't beefing over no streets and nothing like that.
Yeah, I never did any of that.
Now, did you let them, when they told you couldn't hustle over there, did you let them stop your hustle?
Nah, I shot them. Like, as soon as they told me I couldn't hustle, I shot them.
I shot them.
And, that was that, and beef grew or whatever, and so over the years, but at the end of the day, I was on both sides of the fence. I was a good athlete, and I was real smart in school. So I was playing sports, and, I was at Madison my freshman year of high school, and I was playing football, and the private schools came and recruited me and one of my mans. We went to Don Bosco. I ended up getting into it with the dudes out there from Southie and Dorchester, and more gunplay. Got me kicked out of private schools and back into DYS, and I ended up
So we're still talking about your DYS stage. We're not even at the prison stage yet.
No, not at the prison stage yet. When I was at my junior year, going into my senior year, '96, I was actually doing a little show at Gang Peace, rapping and stuff, and I used to rap, and some dudes that we used to call each other enemies back then came, and I ended up getting into it with them, and I ended up getting locked up, and I was 17. That ended up being my first dope charge. And I went to DYS, got out of DYS, and then National Street, and they came and grabbed me and sent me up to National Street, and that was my first time, being an adult.
Okay. And what was that charge for?
That was a gun.
Can you speak up a little more?
That was a gun charge. That was like my third gun charge at that time.
So did you get hit with habitual?
No, that was my first adult charge.
First adult.
That was my first adult case though. So
I got you.
Yeah, and that ended up turning up different too. I had a good lawyer, Herman Hemingway, rest in peace. He just passed away a few months back. But he was a black Muslim, and he saw a lot of potential in me. So when he used to come visit me on my block on Creston, he saw that I had a lot of college papers, and he asked me what's up with them, because I never opened any of them. And he just started opening them, and there was scholarships to a lot of different schools, and he's just like, what you gonna do? I was like, I don't know, I ain't had no plans with it or nothing. So he kind of put a plan in motion, and he set it up with the district attorney for me to take a plea and end up going to school. So I don't know of a case like mine. I was the first case that I could think of, and I actually try to use it now to implement something else that we're trying to put in and help the court system with young black dudes coming up now. But what they did was they dismissed my gun without prejudice and charged me with the bullets to keep me attached to the gun. And if I violate it within that 5-year probation range that I got, they'll re-indict the gun and bring it all back on me.
So if you didn't get arrested in that 5 years, the case would go away?
Well, I would still had the probation. I would still had the conviction, but it would have, pretty much would have been a done deal. 4.5 years later, right at the 5-year mark, I violated on another case, and they ended up bringing it all back at once.
Wow, so you only had 6 months left to go.
6 months left. And so I ended up going to Delaware State University. I took a scholarship down there. The whole thing was with me, right? We had a lot of influences around that time. Like we had a lot of the 5 percenters was up on Elm Hill. We had God's Posse, Chris and Rich and them used to come through. We had Gang Peace. We had a lot of people that used to come kick it with us, you know, and try to get us to fall back on the beefing and violence and drugs. But it was just with me, you know, I never considered myself a troublemaker, super tough guy. They always find a way to interrupt a positive movement. We just keep it pushing. That was security.
Right.
But you know, so at the end of the day, right, like, so I don't make this super long, man. I never considered myself a tough guy, none of that. Like, most of the violence and all that was around me was always around my area. I never went looking for the trouble and whatever. I just protected what I considered mine, you know. And so I ended up taking a scholarship, went down to Delaware, but I still had to eat. So I still had my block hustling. You know, I was, you know, collecting money while I was still in school and the whole nine. And so my senior year down in Delaware, but see, when I went down there too, it kind of got me plugged into DC, Maryland, Virginia, New York, everywhere. So, you know, I'm going home with some of the dudes that I'm in school with that's cool, and I'm meeting their brothers, their cousins, and they in the streets, and that kind of got me in the streets, you know, in these other areas, you know. So that's the exposure is everything, you know. So I was kind of exposed more, and but my senior year I got locked up, and you know, that was the 6 months that I had left on my probation, and I got locked up, and I got re-indicted on the gun. I got locked up with another gun at the time. 2 weeks later, they raided a crib that I had in Somerville, and I had another open gun case from that.
So you was playing with them guns for real?
Yeah, it was, you know, like I said, unfortunately, I don't ever want it to seem like I'm here like promoting that shit. It's cool, none of that, because for real, I look at that as straight bullshit right now, you know, but that's just what it was at the time. I can't take away what it was at the time, but so, you know, I had 4 open cases, and I was sitting in Nashville Street in South Bay from 01 to 03, and within that time frame, I went to trial on all 4 of those cases, and I beat 3 of them at trial, and one of them I kind of didn't even get into the story. One of them was in New Jersey. I had a gun charge in New Jersey, and they took me to trial in absentia, because I didn't show up, so they took me to trial and I got found guilty on that.
So this sounds like you had at least 4 or 5 gun convictions in this little bit of time before you went and did your time as an adult, right?
Yeah. So what ended up happening with that was I was going to so many trials, you know, and winning. The feds just, you know, I actually walked into somebody else's shit.
So you wasn't the type of dude that'd be like, cop out, I'm gonna take this plea, get rid of this case. You went to trial.
I just felt like you just gotta show me, you know, like.
And the result was a lot of times you beat the case.
Yeah, I've been to 7 trials and I won 5 of them.
No, I get it, because when I finally went to trial, I was amazed by it. I said, dang, man, we cop out to this shit. I went to trial and beat 3 trials that people would have never thought that you could beat. I beat the trial with the feds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, see, that's who bust my ass. They bust my ass and sat me down, but.
Yeah, so fast forward me to that. Tell me when you did your adult time and what you got sentenced for.
I ended up getting sentenced for guns and drugs in the feds, but when they came, it was a whole different ball game. Like, when we out here playing, you know, most of us kind of got a concept of what we're doing. Like, you know, some maybe not. Like, I knew when I was running around hustling, like, I get caught up, man, I might have to do a nickel or whatever. So when them people come in and they just come with the astronomical numbers at the time. This was before, you know, the laws changed, everything's 100 to 1, and the crack laws, and,
Right.
and I got hit with a
You felt that?
924C. You know, 924C is when you have a firearm with drugs or violence, and it's a consecutive sentence. So, you know, that's pretty much how they initially gave me 137 months, and a blue trial on that, and I got, you know, extra time added on for I took the stand and they said I lied, so I got obstruction of justice because because I lost. You know, they basically said that I obstructed justice and I lied on the stand.
How much time did they give you for that? I didn't even really. I thought that was a threat they usually use.
They give 5 years for that.
They give 5 years for
They
that.
give 5 years for that. But yeah, it was unconstitutional, really, because that's pretty much saying like they're scaring people from taking the stand in their own defense.
Right.
So yeah, I did. You know, I did a lot of time in the feds, and
How much time did you do?
I did 11.5 on that, and at the end of the day, like when I was wrapping up my bid, you know, that's when I ended up writing my books. You know, the feds send you everywhere. So I was in Atlanta, Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas, California, Oklahoma. But
Where's the last place you were at? Where did you leave from?
I wrapped up in California, Atwater.
Atwater.
Yeah, and but when I was in kind of the subject of how, you know, we build it now was my book I wrote, and I was in
Yeah, what book? Let me know what book you're talking
I
about.
wrote my book, Trailblazing. Being that I was born in Orchard Park, I started, you know, I made a book, and by no means does my books, I wrote 4 books, by no means do my books have any like reality of actual facts, but obviously,
It's all
you know,
fiction.
Yeah, it's all fiction. But when you write a book, you know, I say whether you're Tom Clancy
Let me see it.
or whoever, yeah, this is actually your book.
Oh, this is mine. Thank you. Appreciate that.
But like, you write a book from, you know, kind of what you know, your experiences, other people's experience, or whatever. So they laid me down in a hole when I was in Florida for 3 years. You know, so from 2009 to 2012, you know, I didn't see a day out of the hole. So it was, and I read a lot of books. I read about 1,000 books, and I was just like, some books didn't end right, some books had bad beginnings, whatever. So I just said, listen, I want to write a complete novel. Urban novels, you know, I was into them at one point. Then the writing was so bad, I was like, listen, man, I gotta figure something out, man, and write something complete. So that's through that period of time, for that 3 years I was in the hole, I wrote 4 books, and then I found myself in there too. So by the time I was ending my bid, I was just like, I don't want to go home and act up, none of that shit. I just felt like, listen, I'm gonna do something different. But you know, after doing 11 and a half years and then coming home, you know, I had 3 children at the time, and now they was kids, and now they was teenagers, and you know, my little cousins grew up, and you know, just certain expectations came. So, you know, the one thing I tell people, I went back on a violation eventually, but what I was telling people at the time was like, I wanted to do right when I came home, but I didn't have a plan. So when I came home, I'm like, all right, I ain't fucking around no more. But I got a job. I was working at Comcast, making like $13 an hour, and the shit just wasn't adding up. So
Then you got back in your life.
yeah, so it ended up, I went back to what I knew, and I thought I was doing it a different way, because now it was like, all right, I'll just mess with a couple of people and stay out the way and all of that and whatever. But that caught back up to me. I ended up getting violated and sent back for 2.5 more years. And it was at that time where, like, I was like, all right, I get it now. Like, you know, I understand what I'm facing out there as an adult. When you get locked up at 21, you're a young adult, but then I'm coming home at 35, 34 years old, and then I paid taxes for the first time in my life at 36. It was just like, it's a different level of manhood, you know, that we ain't taught. You know, we ain't taught that as young black men, like, really what being a man is. All we taught is poking your chest out, being tough, all that goofy shit. So, like, we don't really know, like, showing respect for each other and being a man. We see that as a weakness, you know, and, like, for real, I tell dudes a lot of times, man, if a motherfucker tell you that, they're sucking, for real.
So when you did your 2 years on the violation, is that when you really said it's time for me to change everything?
Yeah. That's
when you
when,
came out the first time, you didn't change everything.
Yeah, I didn't change everything.
Right.
My mind state was better, but I didn't
Right.
change everything. When I went back in, when I went back, it was a lot of younger dudes there, and now they're calling me OG and all this crazy shit. They want to hear stories about the penitentiaries I was in and all the stabbings, the wars, the drugs, and all that they heard about that was going on. And I just, when I went on the yard, I'm like, listen, that ain't what you about to get from me. Like, if that's what you want, then you can go over there. Like, for real, here's my paperwork. I don't really need nobody. Like, I can stand on my own. I always stood on my own. So
is that how you walked in prison by yourself, pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, I have my peoples, but no pat on the back, none of the bullshit. There wasn't a yard that I was on out of about 5 or 6 yards, penitentiaries and 2 medium, where I didn't have the car. And when I say had the car, it's like I didn't ask for it to be the head or driving or whatever, but it was like it kind of was deferred to, see what Smooth got to say, whatever about these situations. If there was. So it was just to the point where now I'm like, listen, I can stand on my own. I don't really need, crowds or nothing. So what I did was I changed my whole crowd. Like, I still rocked with the homies, run the homies, still made sure everybody that was on the yard was walking good. You wasn't walking the yard if it wasn't good. And but I lived in the chapel and I lived in the education department. That's what I did. I got myself spiritually together, and then I got around a bunch of white collar criminals that I got around bankers, dudes that was in for mortgage frauds, and all of these things. And I was just like, listen, I went to a little group of dudes, man, and I was like, yo, check this out. I need to know how to make money other than selling drugs, because I don't know how to make money no other way. I was a business major at Delaware State University, and I ain't never learned nothing about money. So I started reading books. I started reading Robert Kiyosaki's whole series, the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. I started reading David Lindahl's, emerging markets and real estate. And these dudes basically told me, like, yo, if you're serious, then this is what we're gonna do. So for 18 months, I walked with about 4 of these dudes every single day. I told them, listen, I don't wanna know about your crimes. I don't wanna know how you stole shit, nothing. Obviously, for you to get to that point, you know something. And I need to know what you know. And we walked and they kicked it, and they put it in my head. So I learned investing, I learned real estate, I learned stocks, and I just pretty much got a financial literacy that I was like, I know I'm gonna need this when I get out here in order to not go back to selling drugs. You know what I'm saying? So that was pretty much what I did.
How long have you been out now?
I've been out since 2018, so 2.5 years.
2.5 years. So has everything that you've learned from your white collar buddies, has that paid off?
It paid off tremendously. Like it, even though I'm not going with exactly some of the things that we learned, the mindset put me where I'm at. So like right now, even I put a couple of dudes, like right now, my primary thing I do is when I came home, I worked. I knew I was gonna have to work for about 2 years. It was part of my plan. I knew I was gonna have to be an average W-2 worker, and so I did that. Had a decent boss, had a decent job. I'm making about $20 an hour, and but still that wasn't my goal. I knew what my goal was. I want to invest in real estate, and I want to have my own business. So I ended up leaving my job, and I bought a van. Well, I never really separated from my job, but I'm still connected to them. I now do deliveries and stuff for them. But I got my van, started doing cargo, and started naming my own price. And so I sit in my van for 4 days out of the week, probably 30 hours tops, and make $1,500, $2,000, a week in the van. And I started investing in real estate. I got 2 properties out in Springfield. I got a property out in Rhode Island. I'm looking to get more properties. My wife is a real estate agent, and so we just started building together. She was one of the biggest reasons I changed. She was pregnant when I went back in with my twins, and I felt like a straight something. Like I just left my woman out here with twins and I'm back here on a violation with a bunch of dudes that want to talk about the shit they had when they was out here, and I just felt like a sucker. So
Now,
that shit changed.
I've heard you 3 times say that you felt like a sucker, and is that because you realized and you learned that the streets that you were keeping it real with and representing to the fullest didn't love you, didn't have no respect, none of that shit for you?
That's pretty much what it is. Like, I mean, we ain't taught right, you know. So it's like, you know, you look at a lot of other cultures, and they kind of got rules that they stuck by, and a lot of their rules is broken too. But like, you know, we sit out here and we break bread with each other, you know, so much, and then when we go in, it's like 90% of us, we're depending on a mother or a family member or your girl, when in all actuality, we had a group of dudes who was running around with every day, and it's always an excuse. So what ended up happening with me was, you know, I got about 4 or 5 brothers that I was in the MECO program with, and then I got about 30 dudes that I was in the streets with. And what it came down to was, you know, my brothers that I went to Don Bosco with and that I went to MECO with, they all started getting into unions. They started growing. They started being men, raising their family. Dudes in the streets had their own shit going on. And it was just like, these were the dudes that stuck by me, and the dudes in the streets is kind of MIA for the most part. So it's just like, you know, like I say, you realize like you're doing all these things, and like I was the type that looked out for a whole lot of people. You know, like if you say my name, man, like ain't nobody ever gonna say no bullshit about it. They ain't never gonna say he's a big snake sucker, none of that. You know, it's just, if they don't like me, they're just gonna say, I don't fuck with you. But at the end of the day, that's about it. You know, they ain't never took a short, ain't none of that. So it's just like, but at the end of the day, what you see is, it's like, man, it ain't real. It ain't what, the image ain't what it is. Like, I've been out here right now kind of keeping the peace as much as I can. You know, I get called in and people tell me like, listen, man, such and such got a problem with such and such. I go sometimes try to do my best to mediate, you know, and you know, I had to tell a young dude recently, like, you know, we dealt with the problem. And I had to pull him aside, like, listen, you know, let me tell you some real shit. Like, you ain't built like that. You ain't built like that. Like, I see you now, you fly, you got your jewels on, you got a ladder hanging out, all that goofy shit, but I see you in National Street browns, whites, and greens. I see you in the Feds browns, and for real, you's a chump. That's really what you're gonna get reduced to, is a chump. And I'm not saying this to insult you.
Yeah.
I'm on some real shit.
Yeah, without that hammer, it's a big difference.
You know, I had to tell dudes, man, when we was warring on the yard, listen, don't pick up that knife if you can't fight, because a motherfucker gonna take that from you and use it on you or me. So, you know, it's just, you know, like I said, man, at the end of the day, you know, it's just about teaching each other how to be men. You know, like, this is man shit. Like you know, we had discussions off camera. You know, we from different parts of the city, and at certain times, them parts of the city, man, had zero understanding. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, when you read my book, you know, I portrayed what the city was.
Talking about Butcher Park and Academy Homes for y'all that don't know.
Yeah, you know, and like I got told B, I'm like, listen, I ain't, you know, obviously it's in the book, but I ain't portrayed, you know, nobody, you know, in a fucked up light. You know, I just, you know, wrote a story based on what we come from and came from, you know, and did my best to make it an entertaining story. You know,
speaking of this book, Trailblazing, why don't you let them know where they can find this?
You can find, I got my own site that's on Wix. I don't even know how to direct you. My wife does all of that, but it's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, ebooks, you know, the whole nine. You know, I personally, you know, deliver it, sign copies.
Well, what is your social media tags? Where can they find you?
On Facebook, I just got my name, Tavon Robinson. Instagram, my name, Tavon Robinson. I don't even know about the hashtags and all of that. I'm not social media savvy really, but you know, that's.
We understand. You've been home 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know too much about all that, but that's what I'm doing. And, you know, pushing the book is you know, it's if you know how to read through the lines, you'll see the messaging. You know, that's the bottom line.
See, what would you tell your younger self, you go back, what would you tell a 15-year-old to learn now, today? And what you know now, what you learned today? What do you say?
Yeah, well, this is the thing with me. I got 4 principles that I use and I teach by. You know, knowledge of self, spirituality, unity, and financial literacy. And like I say, with those 4 things, man, I mean, that's generational wealth. Without those things, you're not going to be able to grow. So, like I was saying earlier, a lot of people came to us and like, man, gave us good messages and we felt good, like, damn, like, all right, we need to chill out, but we needed to make money, you know what I'm saying? So, like, my biggest thing is I'll never go to these younger dudes, man, and talk this positive talk without giving them another means to make money. Because, come on, man, when we was young, man, I made $10,000 in a day 3 times.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
so it's like, how the hell you telling me to stop that? You know, and on the average, we was making a couple grand a week, you know, and like we was young, 15, 16, 17, you know, we drove all the Benzes, the Beamers, the chains, the jewels, all of that. But at the end of the day, all of that shit get taken from you in a heartbeat. You're gonna use all that money on bail, you're gonna use it on commissary, it's gonna run out, somebody gonna fuck your girl, you're gonna be in your feelings. It's the cycle is repetitive and you can't beat it. So like it's just like, you know, this shit's suicide. But at the end of the day, with the positive message, I'm always gonna come with showing you how to make money. I ain't gonna talk about it. I'm gonna show you how to make money right now, the right way. Buy your blocks that you're standing on. Put you in some sort of 1099 worker atmosphere that you work for yourself. And you just start to understand, man, what they understand, man. I mean, they ain't giving us the game. We don't sit at our tables with our families and study business and watch the stock. We don't watch the CNNs and the Fox Newses. You know, we just watch the beginning of the news where the drama's at, and then after that 10 minutes we out. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's just, you know, at the end of the day, man, you just start looking, you know, even the women start to get it. Once you get a real mature woman or whatever, man, it's like, man, they ain't got time for that. They ain't got time to be playing with you, thinking when's the next time I'm gonna see him or if he.
So speaking of women, I mean, of course you were away from women a long time. So was the lady that you just mentioned is your wife now? Is that someone that did the time with you?
She ended up doing my violation. I knew her from you know, back in the days, and then she ended up getting in touch with me through social media. My sister set up a social media page for me. I ain't know nothing about social media. I fell in 01 and all that. We was chirping, you know, and like, yeah, so she linked back with me. We ended up kicking it, and she ended up getting pregnant. We ended up, you know, getting in a relationship, and she been the best thing to happen. She was one of them that's, you know, punched me and she ain't taking no shorts. She was like, listen, man, I love you, but I ain't gonna love that you know what I'm saying? Right. I'm not about to sit up at night worried about, like right now, it's late. She might be mad I ain't home because she want me to cuddle, but she ain't worried, she ain't up worried, and
right.
You know,
she know you're doing something positive.
She ain't wondering what's going on, and you know, so
that's big.
Yeah, you know, and I got 4-year-old twin daughters with her, you know, and it's just like, you know, she got her 2 daughters, that's my stepdaughters, and I got 5 on my own, so it's just like, listen, you know, where the hell the men at? You know what I'm saying? Like, where's the men at? We dead, we locked up, and I just ain't repeating that cycle.
That's good. So before I let you go, man, I really want you to tell the young brothers today. Matter of fact, it's not what I want you to do. What do you have to say to the young brothers out there who are watching this interview and they're still active in these streets, man? What message would you give them?
First things first, right? The dude told me young, man, like, yo, the shit you doing right now ain't even gonna matter 5 years from now. And when you in the moment, you don't get that because you just like, man, I ain't trying to hear old head, fuck old head, what he talking about or whatever. But you know, at the end of the day, man, like you 15, 16, 20, whatever age you are, like I'm 42, and man, listen, man, when I see, I don't got anybody that I consider an enemy. Like even the dudes, man, that we shot at each other, man, we was from different areas or whatever. I was at Derby Park, man, at the New Edition joint, man, and one of the dudes that was, you know, from the other side that, you know, we was rocking. I mean, on sight. He seen me, I didn't even see him. He pulled me up, yo, what's up, man? Good to see you. And it was just like, man, shit like that is a blessing, man. Like we see each other now, man, and like sometimes the hatchet gotta be buried somewhere, and it don't make you less of a man or none of that to just be like, listen, all right, when this shit gonna end, man? You know, sometimes it seems like it went too far, but it's really never too far, because like the one thing that I started seeing that we ain't seeing enough of is like the people who suffering behind the bullshit that we doing. Like we ain't looking at old boy's mother and baby after they got crushed, you know, and we was responsible for it, and like we just looking at it like, all right, we got the op out the way, but at the end of the day, man, these is generations that's building, and man, listen, we all connected anyway, man. Like it's bigger than that, you know. Like I'm big on our history, I'm big on where we going, where we need to be. So like, just get with dudes like us that been through it, that got a different direction, that kind of figured it out. We still figuring it out. We ain't got shit on smash, but at the end of the day, man, we got a message and we got a direction, you know. So that's pretty much what I say to the young dudes, man. Like, get with dudes that's headed in the right direction.
And the message that we have that's universal is Gangsta Gone Legit.
Ain't no question.
You know, and we have to spread that. That means change, you know, and together we can make a difference. And I really believe that. And it's starting to show, man. I mean, like this platform is bringing brothers together, man, that normally wouldn't have even had a reason to sit down and chop it up, you know. And we now, as men, we have something to get back. And this is our way. And I really appreciate, you know, the knowledge that you dropped in wisdom. And I have to say that we're going to have to do a part 2 with you, because you have a lot to offer, you know. And then I would also like to get into, after I read the book, you know, we can talk about that a little bit too, and you take it from there. And you said you had how many books that you've written so far?
I wrote 4 books.
4 books. Do you want to drop the names of the other ones yet, or are they not ready?
No, they're not ready.
Oh, okay, that's good. I actually got 4 myself. I'm coming out in the summer with the Gangsta Gone Legit.
That's what's up.
And, yeah. Of course, I changed the name, because when I originally wrote it was called With the Hills.
Yeah.
Now I just, you know.
But and that's another thing. Support each other, yo. Like, I mean, don't hate on each other. None of that shit, man. Like,
hold on. Let me stop. Now you do know you have to talk directly to the camera for this one, because that is like the biggest thing that we go through. Yeah. And it's not just a Boston thing. I used to think it was just Boston. It's not. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. But it's
you get a lot.
Here,
yeah, it's tougher here. You get a lot more love and support elsewhere, and that's up.
Yeah.
So anyway, say what you were about to say.
Like for real, man. Like support each other, man. Like that's the only way we grow, man. Like everybody else supports each other, man. And us as black people, man, we got it so fucked up where like the hate been embedded in us for so long, we don't even get it. It's second nature. So it's just like you got to get to the point where it's like when you see something that is from your own people, man, it is what it is, man. If I see somebody trying to make it, I'm supporting that, you know. And like, just you ain't gotta be on no bandwagon or nothing, but at the end of the day, man, it's nothing to buy a t-shirt, buy a hat, buy a book, you know, whatever it may be. We got security back up in here again, man, telling us to wrap it up. So, but yeah, like bro said, man, we gotta do a part 2, you know, and do it, man, because I'm big on my people, man. And the one thing for certain, I don't hate nobody, but it takes so much energy to love our own people, because it's so hard for us to love each other, man. I ain't got time to worry about what somebody else think about what I say, or if it's offensive to them or whatever, because, man, listen, man, it's just about us right now.
That's what's up. Well, y'all heard it here, man. This is another edition of Real Spit from the Gangsta Gone Legit. Peace.